If you haven't heard, Derek Carr is a free agent. Plenty of teams will be looking into signing him, and so I figured let me make a list of the 10 teams that could take a look at him. And in fairness to me, before we get into the list, I just want to say there's a lot of, 10 teams is a lot, right? We're talking over a third of the league. When I include my honorable mentions, it will be over a third of the league. So not all these teams are perfect fits, so just know that going in. But some of them I think are very good fits. And I'm also doing who I think should get Derek Carr, not necessarily where I think Derek Carr will go. It's not a prediction. But yeah, just a couple honorable mentions before we get into the actual list. The Seahawks, Colts, and Ravens are all teams that I did not put on the list, but I threw here where they're all teams where I think they're going to go a different option. The Seahawks have Geno Smith. I assume they'll stick with him. Don't see why you'd move off of him, but if, let's say, Geno Smith wants to go somewhere else, if there's more money available somewhere else, maybe you go with Derek Carr instead. Again, honorable mention. The Colts as well, a team that I don't think they want to go with a veteran quarterback. I think they want to draft a quarterback. But, my thought is, let's say you only love, C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, and maybe both of those guys go 1 and 2. Someone else trades with the Bears, and you are unable to get a guy you like. Well, maybe you fall back on a Derek Carr or something like that. Granted, I think Carr will be gone before then, but I'm thinking outside the box here. Maybe they don't love any of the of the quarterbacks, something like that as well. Or maybe a trade happens with the Bears early on, and you quickly realize you're not going to get one of those top 2 guys. The Ravens also an honorable mention. If they decide to let Lamar walk, maybe they go after Carr. Not sure why you do that. Maybe you'd save a little bit of money, but I don't think it'd be the right call, but maybe that's what they do. But okay, those are honorable mentions. Let's get into the actual list. Number 10, the New York Giants, where this is a scenario with Daniel Jones, who reportedly wants $45 million a year. And listen, is he going to get $45 million a year? I don't know. That's what he wants, right? But he might get closer to it than people realize. I don't think that's crazy. And if you can get Derek Carr for a similar or lower price tag, it might be worth going with that option instead and saying, sure, you don't know the system, but you've performed better in several systems with the Raiders, so we're going to go after you instead. It's an option they could go with. Number 9, the New England Patriots, which again is another one of these teams where it's like, is that really where they're going to go? Are the Patriots going to move off of, they have Bailey Zappi and they have Mac Jones. Why go after a third guy? Well, because that guy's better. That would be the option. Going after someone who's definitively a better quarterback than those 2 guys. I don't think they do this, obviously. I don't think it would be a decision that they make. But, Belichick not getting any younger, maybe he says, let's go after this guy who I think, can run this offense well. I think he could run with, the Bill O'Brien, in this case, offense well. But, the Patriots offense, no matter who the coordinator is, kind of stays the same. Although maybe he doesn't want to do that, given the fact that he just went from that offense and it didn't work out too well. So maybe you don't go with the Josh McDaniel thing. But there are little differences in that scenario. But, maybe in hindsight, now that I bring up that point, I almost disagree with my own take. But, whatever. We're making the video. That's the positives and negatives of that. Number 8, let's anger some Lions fans. Why don't we? Lions fans, very, I think, oddly, are completely on the train of Jared Goff is the guy. They don't want to move off of Jared Goff. And I like Jared Goff. I've been someone who's defended him. People were very mad at him his first year with the Lions, and I kind of said, no, when you don't have talent around you, he's not going to look that good. Goff's a solid quarterback, and kind of when your team around him is good, he makes them look better, but when your team around him isn't so good, he doesn't make them look as good. Goff has been to a Super Bowl, but it's worth mentioning he went to a Super Bowl on a rookie deal, and he also, part of the reason they lost that Super Bowl was because he played very poorly in it. So it's worth noting that I think Goff is a fine quarterback, but there's a reason why the Rams, a Super Bowl winning team, decided to move off of him and look for an upgrade. And I think that, Carr and Stafford are kind of in a similar boat. You could argue that this is a time to move. Again, I'm not saying it's what they should do necessarily, or certainly not what they're going to do, but it's the one that I say makes the 8th most sense here. Again, so many teams I have to pick from. Not all of them make sense, but there's some logic here. Number 7, here's where we get into a lot of NFC South teams on this list. The Falcons, who are a team that kind of middling. What do you do here? I do think Carr could run that Arthur Smith offense relatively well. I think Carr kind of fits into most offenses, to be honest. So I can see it. The Falcons do have receiving talent now, so that's definitely an option that you could look towards, and something that I think could potentially work. You need a quarterback here for Atlanta. Not sure if they pick quite high enough for one of the top quarterbacks. Maybe they like another guy. Maybe they like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, and maybe that's where they will go. But at the end of the day, it's an option on the table for them. And I think one that actually does make some sense. The only issue is I don't know how much talent they have, and I'm not sure if getting a solid quarterback on a big deal is getting you closer to a Super Bowl, but certainly would make them favorites in the division. Number 6, the Saints, who reportedly already, seemingly were celebrating getting Derek Carr. Derek Carr, though, denied, basically said, I'm not going to accept any trade. If you want to get rid of me, you have to cut me, because he didn't want to go to a team that had to give up draft capital to get him. It's smart. It makes some sense. He wants to win. Why make it easier on the team that's trying to get rid of you? I totally stand by his decision. Kind of sucks for the Saints, though, because now they have to outbid certain teams, but they don't have to give up draft capital, so that helps. I think the Saints could very easily end up with Derek Carr. Should they, though, is another question. And kind of similar with Atlanta, I just wonder, I kind of feel like they're too far away. To me, the perfect team to go after Derek Carr would be a team that is ready to compete right now and can kind of compete within the next couple of years. Carr is kind of, I think, better suited as a guy to be the last piece of the puzzle than the first piece of the puzzle, if that makes sense. So that's why I have other teams a little bit ahead of them. Like Tampa Bay here at 5, I also have here, which, again, you can kind of 7, 6, and 5 to me are a little bit interchangeable. You could argue one way or the other where you want to go, but Tampa Bay at least has a defense that has been good, and you can maybe hope that with a different offensive coordinator, things could get better with Carr. I also think that they have better receivers, although Chris Olave, the Carr to Chris Olave would be awesome to watch, certainly. So it's not like the Saints don't have anything there, but I think Tampa Bay is slightly more competitive now. They did just win a division, albeit they still had Tom Brady, so that obviously helps. But I think that, again, it's one of those things where, is this a decision you want to make? It would be fun. It would be fun. As you can see with my shirt, I am a Tampa Bay fan, so I would enjoy it. But is it the right call? Probably not. It's probably not the right decision for any of those 3 teams, but it would be a fun decision. Number 4, the Washington Commanders. Again, another team that's maybe looking to get past mediocrity. And, while I say maybe not the right decision, what I really mean is for the Super Bowl. And again, I'm assuming he's going to get a big deal. If you can get him for the right price, sure, do it. I haven't seen too many people speculate that maybe Washington could go after Carr, but to me, this actually feels like a pretty good fit. And I do feel like these top 4, I really understand the logic behind all 4 of them going after Carr, because Washington does have good talent around the quarterback position. And I think with Carr, could be a team that in a potentially weak NFC, the 49ers should still be good, but there's still the question marks at quarterback there. And the Eagles should be very good, but they have a lot of free agents. Maybe there's a power vacuum in the NFC. And if Derek Carr comes in, maybe there's a way that you can be the 3rd or 4th best team in the NFC, which could give you a chance to, pull off an upset or two and get yourself into the Super Bowl, like we saw the Rams do, where, they pulled off an upset against Tampa Bay, kind of more of they matched up well against Tampa Bay. I think that they deserved that win, but, because of that, the Packers got upset by the 49ers, and you could really argue the Rams maybe didn't have to pull off an upset whatsoever to get to the Super Bowl. Maybe the Washington Commanders with Carr could do something similar. Again, I kind of view Carr and Stafford in that same general area of talent, and so that could be a strategy that they could go with. From what I've heard, it feels like they're okay with sticking with Sam Howell, which I don't think is the worst decision in the world necessarily, but I don't think it's a great move either. I don't think you feel great about sticking with Sam Howell. Again, they could try to maybe draft a guy, maybe trade up to draft a guy, something like that, but it would make sense for them to go after Carr as well. Number 3, how about the Carolina Panthers? This might seem a bit surprising to some people that have them so much higher than the other NFC South teams. Not that much higher, but, number 3. But I do think the Panthers have a legitimate roster. I think that the Panthers roster is actually underrated. And, they were potentially a win away from winning the division last year. If they win that Week 17 game, which they had a double-digit lead in the 4th quarter in, they possibly win the division with a complete quarterback carousel going on. So getting a guy who can be steady and good is definitely something that they would immediately become, have great odds to make the playoffs, maybe best odds in the league, just given the way that NFC South looks right now. It's kind of telling that every single NFC South team made it in the top 7 on this list. Kind of just goes to show where they're at in terms of the quarterbacks. So got a long way from having Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, and who's in Drew Brees in the same division, and then Brady came along right after. Now all those guys are gone. So I think that they could be, again, kind of similar to the Washington Commanders. Could Carr put them up to being like the 3rd or 4th best team? Do you get an upset to happen? Maybe you can find a way to win a Super Bowl that way, or at least make a conference championship that way. Number 2, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting the 49ers here. I think that there's some logic behind this. Now, this would have to be a kick the can down the road, move the cap space to future years kind of move. But honestly, for Carr, one thing I thought of as well is if you're Derek Carr, if you don't get a contract you love, let's say that there's some money left on the table, why not just go take a $1 million deal, or a little bit more than that, but take a cheap deal with the 49ers, let's say a $10 million deal to play for them for 1 year, put it in your contract, you can't get franchise tagged. You have a great chance to go out and win a Super Bowl, and if you win a Super Bowl and then hit the open market, you're getting $50 million a year. I mean, that's just what's happening, and he would be great in that system. They would immediately become favorites to probably win the Super Bowl because you factor in the weakness of the NFC. They don't have to go through a Buffalo and a Cincinnati and a Kansas City and a Jacksonville and all those teams to get there. That would be a great move, and it'd be very exciting. Number 1, though, I think is the Jets. I think this makes the most sense. The Jets would be willing to spend for Derek Carr, I think, whereas the Niners, they have other guys that they might pay more attention to. They might not have the big impact difference the way the Jets, who had just a horrible quarterback situation last year and were still a fringe playoff team. Adding Carr puts them into playoffs. I think this is going to happen. This is also my prediction as to what happens. It seems like they both really, they had the meeting. It seems like they both liked each other. It's what it seems like. Both fans of how the other one would fit with them. I think Carr would fit in this system very well. Again, Carr fits in most systems well. I think that he can run most offenses. He's a good quarterback. I think that seeing him throw some deep balls to Garrett Wilson could be a lot of fun for sure. And I think that the Jets would want to do this. This makes the most sense to me. It's maybe not quite as exciting as if he went to the 49ers, but it's still very exciting. And could this turn the Jets into a Super Bowl roster when, kind of one of the things we talk about is if you're paying a good quarterback, great quarterback money, you kind of have to find a lot of value elsewhere. The Jets currently have that. The Jets currently do have a lot of value elsewhere. So it does make a lot of sense. 49ers and Jets, that feels like the two ones that would make the most sense to me. I don't think the Saints or Buccaneers make a ton of sense to me, but they make more sense than some other teams. So they're still on the list. But yeah, that's kind of where my head is at. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Where do you think Derek Carr should go? Is it somewhere I didn't mention? Do you think, if you're a Chiefs hater, do you think he should go to the Chiefs? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.